Good morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scouser's Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser. I am not your host, Timothy, as he is away, enjoying some family time, enjoying the coasts of the U.S. So instead, I am joined here by Sir Z. Good morning, Sir Z.
Hi, Matthias. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. I think you talked about yesterday on the pre-match show about how oftentimes the result of the match can definitely make your mood or break your mood for the rest of the weekend, if not the week. So all in all, good performance yesterday. I wasn't part of the post-match show. I wasn't quite around to hear any of your thoughts. So what are your thoughts regarding the match against Brentford? How did you see that play out?
It was a good match. I did say yesterday the post-match, and it's one of the matches, I think, or one of the eras now where we're going to have to reset our minds, and it's not how Klopp was, the heavy metal football, and I think you could see that in the stadium. The atmosphere was flat at times, and I think it's more nervousness or just not knowing what we have to feed the crowd, have to feed up the players now. But yeah, I think them 3:00, 4:00 starts are going to be nightmare for me. I'm going to have to get some energy drinks in watching Liverpool play like that. But that being said, I mean, a win's a win. It was very much possession based, as what Curtis Jones was saying in the preseason. That it's going to be a lot more possession based rather than like direct attacking, and that's pretty much akin to what Slot was saying. And even in his first interview, brought up Pep Guardiola a lot, and I think that's how we're going to play. I think we're going to play possession football until we kill off the teams. Another clean sheet. That's like 2 in a row. Really, it was just a solid performance. I don't think there was a time where it felt like we were going to really concede, other than a great save from Alisson. But it was. I was happy and a clean sheet, and it wasn't a lucky. We could have won 3-4-0. Yeah, it was a good, solid performance.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think, ultimately the best part about yesterday was that, I guess from not being at the stadium, but being at my home watching it, I didn't feel the same sort of nervous energy, nervous excitement that I felt the first week. And, I think there's the stat going around that was it 92% pass completion, the best by a Liverpool club since 2004, something like that, which is just crazy when you think about how good the Klopp era was, but yet how not dominant it was in possession per se, but just dominant as a whole philosophy of football. So I think overall it was a good team performance. I think the most encouraging moments were the moments where you would get 6-7 guys back behind the ball to stop any counter, and that kind of stuff. That was great to see. And I think Szoboszlai had a quietly very, very good game. I think he did a lot of dirty work. I think he made a lot of runs that weren't rewarded, but also made a lot of runs going back on D2. So I think overall, the one thing that maybe could be a bit of a concern, I don't know how you feel about it, is not rotating that midfield earlier. Do you think it's a matter of Slot kind of wanting to see out what this three look like in 90 minutes? Or do you think there's just sort of a bit of a, hey, we're only playing one game a week right now, they can go 90? Because I know the last thing that we need is to have this midfield, or, what we have of it, have their legs run off of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think like to Kaiser's point, he's made a point a couple of times. It's only one game a week. So, and I think it looks like this is probably going to be his first choice midfield.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to drop Maka, and again another 90 minutes for Maka. And I think obviously Jones being injured kind of helped Slot's cause in not having to make that decision to bring Jones in. And you're right, but Szoboszlai, I've been one of his biggest knockers, last season. But yeah, he put in an excellent performance. Like even though it's unseen, but those are the best players that they do the dirty work. And we're not expecting him to like score from like 50, 40 yards. If you do, you do. It's fine, but just do the dirty work, which is what Gravenberch did as well. He was playing like Ronaldo, just unseen but critical to that midfield. And you hit the nail on the head. We played as a team. And I think that's the big difference between the Klopp era, not Klopp's era, but he had Mane, Salah, Bobby, and that was it. The system was built around them. But now it's built around 11 players on field, 15 if we include the subs, and we're going to have a lot more clean sheets, definitely. And it's so good not to have to concede and then fight our way back, because I don't think that's one thing I'm scared of. If we do go behind, I don't see how we're going to score like 2-3 goals to maybe get back. And hopefully we don't have to see that.
I think that's going to be the interesting test, that barometer, that moment where every club goes through in the season, whether you get that little rough patch and you really get to see what this team is made of, what the philosophy is made of, what the coach is made of when you hit that patch there. And it could be like you're saying, right? It's very much it's sort of a proactive type of system more so than a reactive type of system. And so what happens when you do have to react rather than be proactive about it? We're joined today, as always, by Ryan. Good morning, Ryan, and Alan as well, wherever you are in the world. Alan, good morning to you. Ryan, Soboslai was great. Our back four was great. And most importantly, we came back with a vengeance on counters. Yes, both going forward on counters and both coming back on counters. How many times last year I just had flashbacks. The moment Jota got that ball and we saw Diaz making that run, all I could think about was Man City. All I could think about was Arsenal last year. All I could think about were all those moments where we had that counter and it just went to shit. And I'm just sitting there going like, whoa, I don't know what's going to happen. And to see Lucho just take that on his weak foot too, nonetheless, and just blast it into the goal. That was probably it was a really good feeling to see that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it was a good feeling to score, but for players that notoriously miss a lot of shots, it was good. And Jota, it just seems like, I know you don't really care for Jota much, but he just
I'm on the fence.
It's been 2 games, but he's defending from the front, and he's a player that we love, that other supporters hate, but they would love to have on the team. He's got that narkiness, that Portuguese arrogance and attitude that a lot of us like pan on, but he's so vital to that team. We may get onto it later, but I just don't see how Nunes gets his spot back unless Jota gets injured.
Yeah, I guess maybe we touch into that a little bit, right? It seems set up in a way where even if Jota was hurt, I think I would much rather still see Gakpo in that role than Nunez. I think Nunez doesn't have the same hold-up play. And the one thing with me about Jota has always just been that I feel like he always had moments throughout the season where he would have games where he would score a goal or two, but he would do absolutely nothing else the entire game, but he would get all the plaudits because he had a fantastic goal or two. And that I feel like a lot of the stuff that he didn't do were often just like, oh, well, he scored. It's fine. No big deal. He's a goal scorer. You don't have to worry about him doing anything else. What I've seen from him in these last 2 games has been just really exciting because I feel like it suits his style of play really well. It looks like something that he enjoys doing. I think overall, it looks like the players enjoy what they're doing. I think that's really important too, is that it doesn't seem like they're burdened to do a specific task. It's more of a natural flowing kind of thing that they probably enjoy more because as a kid wanting to play the sport, wanting to play any sport as you grow up, we usually do it because it's fun, right? Yeah. We do it because we enjoy it. We do it because, and if we're good enough at it, we want to continue to compete, but we don't ever want to forget how fun it is. And so I think the important thing is to know that when you stop having that fun, and that's maybe what was going on towards the end of last season, where players were just the manager wasn't having as much fun, the players weren't having as much fun, and that's just kind of what ended it in a poor way. But just especially like this moment that Ryan's talking about, where you go, Mo is playing 1-2 with 3 different players. Jota finds McAllister, who then pings it, or not pings it, but he lobs it right over to Mo. If that defender, I don't remember who it was, but if he doesn't follow Mo all the way throughout that play, that would be one of the goals of the season right there.
Yeah, and you're right. It's it's like I was saying on the post yesterday, that we're back to basics, and we can't concede if we have the ball. So if we have possession of the ball, there's no way the opposition is going to concede. And it's just it seems like we're an extension of Slot. He's just very calm, unemotional player, manager or coach, and it's just like the players have taken to him like that, where now a playing style is an extension of his character. Pretty much how Man City are. Mm-hmm. You see Arsenal with their antics being like Arteta, but it's football is true. Like it's just such a basic sport. Anyone can pick up a ball and play just basics. You don't need to be like Arteta and play. You never walk alone in your training ground, and or like pickpocket them. And it's just overthinking. It's too much overthinking. Just get back to basics, and you have the ball, and the other team aren't going to score. And we got world-class players that are going to get us goals.
Yeah, it's not like the team is made up of a bunch of rejects that nobody wanted.
No, exactly.
And that's the thing that we sometimes forget. And I know that there's been frustration amongst supporters about the lack of signings. But objectively speaking, if you're looking at this team from 1 to 66, right, or 78, you have enough quality there to compete. Maybe we're still not quite at the level where you can safely say that this is a side that can compete for the league or for the Champions League. Either one. I think this side could easily compete for either league, for either the League Cup or the FA Cup, right? But maybe we're just a piece or two away. But maybe we're not. Maybe just maybe there's, because of what you're saying as well, because of how they're taking to the manager, of kind of this stoic approach to it, not as emotional of an approach. I know football is also an emotional thing, and I think that's part of what the fans are there for, as part of the emotion of it. But especially for guys like Van Dijk, Salah, Robbo, Ali, Trent, who have been part of such an emotionally exhausting kind of system around a manager who is also, we love Jurgen, but he had his moments, right? I mean, he wasn't always the easiest. So I think maybe, if anything, this could be a respite for some of those players who can take a step back emotionally on the pitch, and maybe even that way be able to perform a bit better, knowing that the emotion doesn't have to be there at 100 all the time.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it's like what Ryan is saying, like, people may call it boring, but I'd rather get the results and wins right now and then lose gallantly. And again, it's like Gordo says, we're 4 games away from immortality, really. You look at the Champions Leagues, and just sometimes you think, okay, if we just were a little bit more pragmatic, we could have had them points. So, and that's not to knock Klopp. Obviously, I mean, I've been a Liverpool fan since '82. So, what Klopp did, I wouldn't switch that for the. We saw probably the 3 best strikers. We had the best 3 forwards in the world, and he gave us so much joy and so much. How many times I've jumped across in my room and just like almost like done my ankle in. That's all Klopp's fault. But right now, but then, look at Man City fans, like they'll rather take the wins than exciting football. And obviously, they're so bored of Man City, they don't turn up to watch them play. But we're not, obviously we're not at that stage yet. But it is refreshing that we can be calm and the players are calm. And I think, I really think we're going to win the title. And I said that, before the season started. But I think keeping them clean sheets, and we do have the players. We Klopp didn't leave us in a bad spot.
Right.
I think his only mistake was not getting Verge, Trent, and Salah tied down. And I think if Klopp had stayed, I don't think Salah would stay anyway. I think that point got to it was just like at that point it was just a breaking point between NC. But yeah, I really do think finding Gravenberch is like the player that we wanted, and we're just trying to keep up with the Joneses, I guess, in terms of new players. I really do think we just need another centre back just to shore up the defence. But I'm really positive about the season from what I've seen so far.
Yeah, keeping up with the Joneses without Curtis Jones, unfortunately. But there is one piece of news, and Ryan did say cautious is the word. We haven't been cautious in a long time, and I think that's a good word to use, and it's not a bad thing. And, I can't wait for the amount of people to, I guess in my head, I'm thinking, there is nothing that I want to say specifically that is against Klopp. I mean, like you said, he gave us all those moments that he gave us, but I never want to treat him as someone who was always 100% perfect and could never do any wrong.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes some of our supporters got to a point where this team, everything was because of Klopp, whether it was good or when it was good, it was Klopp. When it was bad, it was someone else. And I think when you get to that level, it can be a bit of a slippery slope to put so much just absolute, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Absolute
immortality.
Yeah, right. In that sense. So we'll see how things go. Obviously, it's early, right? We're only 2 weeks in, but it's exciting in a different kind of way. And if you keep clean sheets, you always have a chance to win the league. So if that's what it comes down to, that's the most important thing. Richard joining us as always, giving us a good views. It's called Football, Not Soccer. LFC is Liverpool Football Club. You are absolutely correct. It is LFC Football Club, and FSG want 23 American players at LFC. I don't think that's true, actually. But, we appreciate the engagement. And speaking of wanting different players at the club, let's bring up this news that this is finally going to go through. I think I just saw that he passed his medical as well. So Georgi Mamardashvili to undergo Liverpool medical today.
I was going to call him Marmaduke.
Marmaduke. Marmaduke's cool. I think we can think of a really cool nickname for him. That's for sure. I think maybe Bickler put it on the Discord right before we came on. But this, I think when you're looking at it objectively, if we had done business in this window, let's say we had gotten a center back and a defensive mid, this would have been seen as an incredibly intelligent piece of business. When you are able to lock up someone for this amount who is 23, 24 years old, he's 6'6", he's got a huge frame. He looks like Donnarumma in goal, right? And he's being touted as one of the next best keepers. Obviously, it might seem weird when you already have the world's best goalkeeper, but future planning is always good, I think. I remember doing a podcast here on American Scouser. I think it was like 3.5 years ago. And I was talking about Mane leaving and Mo leaving and Bobby leaving. And we didn't have anyone in the wings, if you will, anyone behind them that would be taking that next step. And that was my biggest concern. With this, I think this is an incredible piece of business. Whether Ali stays for another 3 or 4 years or not, you are able to make sure that no matter what happens, you are going to be at least okay enough.
Secured.
Yeah.
No, yeah, definitely. And like I said, I wish they would have done this with Mane. I don't know whether I thought Diaz was. I mean, you can't. The thing of like Mane, Bobby, and Salah, I think they became elite because of Klopp. Because there was a lot of teams that kind of like sniffing around Mane, but they didn't really push it over the edge. But Klopp took that chance and he made them elite, and they worked in our system. But yeah, definitely with goalkeepers, excellent goalkeepers, they're not really a dime a dozen. So the fact that we got this over, and I mean, obviously, I mean, I like Kelleher, but I mean, you saw what this guy did in the Euros. He was amazing. And even then, I was thinking, wow, I'd love to have him, but there's no way Liverpool going to buy him. They're not going to replace. He's not going to replace Alisson. But the fact that we went for him and at least you know prepared for the future, I guess. If Alisson leaves, but I mean, I wouldn't like to see Alisson leave either. But so I don't know what's going on in 3-4 years' time. I don't know if this player's going to keep on wanting to go on loans or just be number two for Alisson and until he retires. But it'll be interesting. But I'm glad we've forward planned that. We should have done that with our defenders for sure.
Yeah, speaking of defenders, Ryan, any word on the center back or left back? If you can't tell, I'm super worried about that. Yeah, no word yet. If we had any sort of insider information, you would be the first that we would tell, because I know that we want to make sure we can take care of your worries there. Yeah, it's again going back to who's at the club already. Barring any injuries, and Slot has a good track record when it comes to injuries, but it's something, you can't control them. It's not just, yes, training regimens can be different, practice regimens can be different, the way you approach the games can be different, but at the end of the day, if you go out there, you jump and you tweak a knee, there's no sort of coaching that's going to that's going to be able to protect that. So I think if we don't have to suffer through any injuries, I can see why FSG feel, and Slot for that fact, feel like there is enough at this club. And it's not like they didn't try. We wanted to see what would have gone on with Zubamendi. And so, but on the flip side, I guess, devil's advocate, if you're going after someone like Zubamendi, then clearly you feel like there's some sort of weakness.
Yeah, but I think Slot keeps saying, we're not going to buy players just for the sake of buying players. And as much as obviously we all want a new player because everyone else is buying players, and I think we're the only club in the whole of Europe that haven't bought a new player in. But then, do we want a crap player? I mean, how many bad transfers have we had before club or even after club? If you think how much we spent on Nunes, and it's not that I'm against Nunes. I still want him to do well, but that's 80 million pounds that we spent on Nunes, and sometimes you just have to be careful what we wish for. It's that we know where we need to strengthen, and I don't think that number 6 that we were crying out for last season and the season before, I think we've moved on from that, and I think we've seen now Maka and Gravenberch can work in a double 6, and that's where the whole system just changes. Now we've got to find players that fit into that system. And it's interesting, if we did get Zubamendi, I really think a big name player would have gone. Maybe Jones would have gone. Because you can't fit that many players into that midfield and play that system. So I think our midfield might actually be sorted. I think the solution may have been Gravenberch. And if he can stay injury-free, and if McAllister can stay injury-free, I think those are the two, along with Szoboszlai, that are going to be our first choice front three, which, is bad for Elliot because I love Elliot, but, I mean, we've got 65 games this season, hopefully. So let's see what happens. But definitely it's that defense that scares me.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ryan, you should spit that out right now. I think any of us want to see the Konate from the Champions League final week in, week out, and see that if we get that Konate for an entire year, we're going to be so happy. Kwanzaa might not be as happy, but there's always going to be that bit of competition between. I think it's a healthy thing to have. You need to have some sort of competition for position, because if you don't, players do become complacent, unfortunately. Abdul joining us this morning as well. We're doing well. 2-0 against Bradford. Yes. Next game, Man United. Buying players is a risk. We need depth and reinforcement. Many thanks. I think the difficult thing with that, Abdul, is that you could say any player you bring in from now up until the United game isn't going to have much of an impact on the game anyway. There's not enough time left to be able to bet them in and make sure that they're along in the system. So I think if anyone does come in this week, they might make a cameo on the bench, but I don't foresee. Let's say hypothetically, Sergi, if we do sign someone, is it enough? Is it someone in a specific position where you think we would actually see them, or is just for a signing for the sake of signing, like an Arthur Mello?
No, I don't think. I don't. Well, definitely, like you said, I don't. If we do buy a player this week, I don't think they start against Man United, and because the players that have played, they haven't done anything wrong. You know, we've won 2 games, 100%, and we've kept a clean sheet. So, you know, to buy a player and then immediately put him in, what does that say for the rest of the squad? When you got Elliott who can't get in, and Jones who can't get in, and Gomez who can't get in, and you know, Tsimikas that can't get in. So no, I don't think a new player automatically starts. They'll have to be bedded in, and I really just hope it's a defender that we get. You know, it's Ignacio or Hincapie or whoever, but we need to back up that defense.
And I think the bit of a frustrating thing about this is that we've played Brentford, we've played Ipswich Town, right? I mean, we at this point in the season don't know how good of results those were. We can kind of assume the Ipswich one, they're going to be fighting at the bottom. If Brentford ends up being a team that is also scrapping at the bottom, you know, that we haven't really come across a good team, a decent team quite yet, or a big team. And to be honest, we don't come across a big team for another 5-6 weeks, right? I mean, that's I'm not even going to count United in that because we don't need to. But so we might not really get a good sense of how some of these players react in the system against a tougher opponent for maybe another month. I mean, it all depends from game to game, right? The Wolves game could be a struggle for all that we know. But if it's not, then we're going to get a good taste of what these guys are capable of. And I think part of that taste and that hunger is good, especially when it comes from a situation like this where I think we all saw when Trent got subbed out, he was not happy, right? He was on the bench, he was slumped.
Yeah.
And Arne, he went over to him right away, had a talk with him. And here's a quote, asked about that situation, saying, "I understand every player wants to play 90 minutes, but the players on the bench from the start were also not really happy with my choices. We have to take care of him because we need him for the whole season." The pessimist in me would say, why just this season? Don't we need him for the future? Is he not signing the contract? But the optimist in me is saying, yeah, I mean, this manager wants to make sure that Trent is part of every single big moment he needs to be part of. So with that situation as a whole, I know we had a bit of a discussion on it on Discord yesterday. What are your thoughts about Trent, about the substitution situation there?
Also, you'd want your player to be upset coming off, especially being the vice captain. I mean, there's ways of doing it. The visuals weren't the best from him, especially being a vice captain. But you know, it is what it is. And Slot, ultimately, Slot's the one in charge. We're winning 2-0. He's trying to protect the player from himself. We do need him. We need him against Man United. We need him for the rest of the season. And it's a backhanded compliment to Trent, and he should take it like that because he knows he didn't perform bad. We're just trying to save his legs. Also, being a vice captain, and he's got youngsters looking up at him. There's ways you can visually show whatever. But the fact that Slot, I mean, everything's on camera. So the fact that Slot sat down with him and everything, like at some point, something must have kicked into Trent's head and said, you know what, I need to grow up. I'm 25 years old. Everyone's watching me. There's rumors of you in Real Madrid and everything else. Just, you don't need to feed into that. So he could have handled it better, but I'm not worried. I mean, it's like I said in Discord, if he really wants to go to Madrid, then fine. If this is if this is the breaking point, then so be it. We're bigger than you, and I'll pay for your Uber to Manchester Airport so you can go if this is going to be a breaking point. Because we don't need players like that. We're in a transition period where what we've known for almost a decade. We're literally starting again from the coaching aspect of it, and we need everyone on board. And you're supposed to be a leader of the team. So, I mean, he wasn't petulant, but he could have handled it better, just for the visual aspects of it, at the very least.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's. I think it's a non-story. I just think it's a story because he hasn't signed his contract. I mean, now Real Madrid are in the background, and I mean, know how Real Madrid operate. If you read Steven Gerrard's autobiography, they tried to get Gerrard, and they're telling him, "Oh, start causing grief with Liverpool." So and I don't know whether they've got into there with Trent there or not, but if they have, they have, and if this is the breaking point, then you can take him. We don't need players like that right now.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest part of this whole thing is that if there weren't those rumors, if the contract was there, this would just be seen as exactly what it is, that a player that wanted to play the full 90 because he felt like there were some more opportunities for him to either get on the score sheet or be able to assist again. And and if an extra 12 minutes against Brentford, like you're saying, is what makes you want to go to Madrid, then fine. Just like you're saying, just like Abdul is saying, players are not bigger than the club. Obviously, we're going to have emotional attachments, sentimental attachments, the memories that come with some of these players, especially someone who is a local lad, right? Someone who grew up idolizing this club, who grew up idolizing players like Steven Gerrard, who grew up wanting to be that. And for you to then to be everything you wanted to be, to win everything under the sun by the time you're 23, 24 years old, and then you become the vice captain of the club that you idolized, there is a level of professionalism that still needs to occur, whether you're on the pitch or not, right? Like you're saying, everything you're doing, you were that kid once when you were 6-7 years old watching that TV. You watched what Stevie G was doing and you thought, that's what I wanted to do. Now what you're doing, it's same kids 6-7 years old are watching you do it, and is that what you want them to see, right? And so I think I liked Slot's approach in that he's going to go and take care of it now. He's not going to let it sit there. He's not going to kind of let it fester on the bench. He's going to go. Right. He's going to nip it, and then that'll be it. And then the next day everything will be fine. So yeah, I think I shared the same sentiment as you, that I think it's a non-story. But because of all the background nonsense going on, it has to become a story, because that's the kind of world that we're living in. We have to read into every single thing. And that's a tough thing to do when the cameras are in your face 99% of your life, right? I mean, exactly. If I had someone filming me all the time, there'd be many things people could think of be saying or doing or how I'm thinking, because it's just, you can't help it. So that's, it's unfortunate, but that's the way of the world.
Slot managing it then and there is that we didn't want Trent's attitude then and there to affect the subs that are about to come on.
Mm-hmm.
And players are a different culture to when managers aren't around, and they all speak to each other and they all influence each other. So to nip it in the bud then and there and stop other players from feeding off Trent's negativity in that moment, that was excellent man management. And I don't know, Klopp's done it. He did it with Henderson when Henderson walked past without shaking his hand, and he pulled Henderson back, and it's like, and that's the difference between a manager and leader. And sometimes you just need to know when to be a manager and when to be a leader. And that was great. That was great from Slot.
And I think a part of, to your point of knowing when to be a manager, when to be a leader, you have to understand how the players that you're leading or managing react to your different styles of how you approach that situation. Right. Because if Trent was the type where that you can't go sit down next to him because he's going to explode, then you don't take care of it that way then. But if you know your players well enough, you go, you know what, I know I can go sit down next to him. I can say my couple words, say my piece. He's going to be fine and move on. Then you do that. Some players, they need it behind closed doors. Others, they don't care. So it's all about, like you're saying, the man management and understanding the men that you are managing more than anything. Yeah. And that's one thing that we heard a lot about Slot coming in, is that he is that kind of manager. He is able to understand the human side of things just as well as the tactical side of things. which is really nice. And so I guess speaking of human and maybe a little bit not human, maybe more like a robot, if you will, just a really quick thing here at Anfield, 99 games, 97 unbeaten when this man is on the pitch. It is absolutely unreal. The 100th game will be in a couple weeks, but yeah, every time I look at it, I know it was said a couple times, I know I've seen it a couple times, but it looks like a video game. Numbers that shouldn't exist in real life.
Yeah. And the fact that you can remember the 2 games, I mean, it says it all. It's it's. I think it was Gary Gillespie, one of our ex-players. He was on Liverpool TV, and he said, no, actually, he was saying about Salah, but there's other pundits that are saying like, oh, Virgil van Dijk is not even in the top 10 of best Premier League players. I'm like, what are you on? Like, seriously, this guy is just unbelievable. He literally changed our team around. Even when we had Mane, Salah, Bobby, we weren't going to win anything. We were close, but Virgil van Dijk, he literally, we were that close to winning the Champions League because even, it was just Karius that screwed things up. But he just completely transformed that defense, completely. One of the biggest impact players that we've ever had in this club, and it's just immense that anyone will take him. And you see all these other fans, and they try to compare him to Saliba and Maguire, whoever. Like, they would take Virgil van Dijk within a heartbeat.
I think my favorite thing to ever say is that whenever you're comparing other players back to the same player, you know what the answer is already. If you have to sit there and compare Van Dijk to X, Y, Z, then you know that it all comes back to Van Dijk. There's your answer. Yeah. It's as simple as that, right? I think this is very much like in the States when people talk about basketball players or football players or whatever, and you always have the arguments of like, oh, well, is this player like Jordan and this player like Jordan and this player like Jordan? And it's like, well, no, it's just Jordan, right? Or LeBron or whatever the case might be. You're consistently comparing those players to the best, to the benchmark, like you're saying. Correct. Yeah. So I think that's the amazing thing about it. And the fact that I think we've touched on it, especially I think John and Gordo talked about it on the Wednesday show last week too. Just being able to come back from that knee injury that he had, I think that's a testament to who he is as mentally, as a person, as a player, more than anything. Because that kind of thing that can derail your entire career, that can derail your mental psyche, right? It's I haven't had a major injury myself, but I've sprained an ankle and I've been able to play for a few weeks, and I've been like, fuck, I don't want to do anything anymore. Like, and to think that you have to go through an entire surgery with your knee and being out for 9-10 months, I mean, that's a serious thing that you have to get through.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, he's mentally strong anyway. I think that when he was a kid, I think he was like seconds away from dying. He had something wrong with his kidney, or I can't remember what it was. But so he's gone for a lot mentally. So he's mentally strong, and he's reinvented himself. He knows his strengths. He knows what his weaknesses were, and he's just strengthened himself even more. Obviously, getting that leadership role, I think, helped. But yeah, he's just he's just unbelievable. And anyone that knocks him, I don't think they're watching the same game.
No, they're not. I think it's very much maybe people who are not used to watching the sport. It's difficult because in many sports, because in many American sports, the way that you analyze players, the way that you look at players is very much always numbers and stats based. The sports here, they offer you a lot of numbers to see, and whether it's to credit or to discredit, you see those numbers and you go, oh, that person has this many, he's that good. Or, oh, he's not that good because he only has this many. This sport specifically, there is such a big level to the eye test. Not to say that Van Dijk doesn't have the numbers, because obviously he does. But if you are not used to watching the sport, you're going to look back and you're just going to look up some numbers and see that and kind of be the end all be all. Like, oh no, there's no way he's better than Rio Ferdinand or John Terry
Right.
or whatever, because the numbers aren't there. But if you were to just physically watch on the pitch and see everything, that's the issue that I find sometimes, that people just, they put too much stock into the numbers.
Yeah, I think was it you or Timothy brought it up a couple of weeks ago, and when you played Leicester, and Allison let that goal in, and we changed the system up where Ronaldo played on the left, and even though his numbers wise didn't do anything, but he stopped Leicester attacking on that side, and that's what people, if you're going to rely on numbers, you wouldn't see that, but you wouldn't see the importance of what Ronaldo did against Leicester that day. He stopped them attacking on the right side, and it's true. Like it's gone so like numbers based and all these XGs and all this. Like none of that matters. At the end of the day, you know what the players do in the field, and it's the final score that obviously matters in the end, and how many goals you don't concede matters. But yeah, the numbers they just bump up a player's value, I guess.
To see how much another team will pay for him, pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, before we'll talk a little bit, preview the United game a little bit, maybe get some thoughts. But before we do that, just wanted to bring this up and share this as well. Sven-Goran Eriksson passing away today. This is the picture of him before being able to manage the Legends game, an opportunity that, he absolutely loved, as you can see with the smile on his face, a moment that we all loved as supporters. I think when the news broke of him saying that he always wanted to manage his club, there's just a little smile that comes out that just it makes you feel so good. So is there, I'll be honest, I wasn't around as much to enjoy as much of what he did as a manager. You probably have a better sense of kind of overall just watching the sport since at least 82, right? You said, is there anything that you will take away from him? I know from what I've read and what I've seen, I mean, he just, as a person, he was a very genuine, good person, more than just being a good manager as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think when he was a manager at Lazio, I think at the time, Liverpool were there were talks of him coming over to Liverpool to, I think, replace Dalglish or Souness, but they didn't take the risk on a foreign manager, and we ended up with Roy Evans. So we've always had a connection with him there. Him taking over England, obviously, I'm not England's biggest supporter, but he was a good England manager. Like, he actually made it fun to follow England, and we did have like a golden generation of players. We had Scholes, Beckham, Gerrard, Lampard, and I think it was just unlucky with injuries, the fact that England didn't go on to win anything. But it's just one of them guys you just like. You just publicly have to like, because he didn't wind people up the wrong way. He wasn't, he wasn't an a-hole to anyone. He was just like, and he was just like normal. He just seemed like a normal human being. He just enjoyed the game, and even managing Man City, you just couldn't dislike him. That was my personal opinion. He's one of them players and people you just couldn't dislike, and and I'm glad Liverpool classy enough to fulfill his ambitions. It's and it's being a Liverpool fan. It doesn't surprise me that Liverpool did that. That's just how Liverpool are. And no, it was. I'm glad he managed to do that before he went.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. And it always stings a little bit more when you know that the person is as genuine as they were, as kind as they were, and their philosophy of life was sort of, in a way, kind of how you would want your philosophy of life to be too, right? It's very easy to sometimes get mixed up and forget that in the midst of sport, that there is so much more than, there isn't anything other than Liverpool to life. But in the times that there are, it's important to remember that, there is so much more to life that is there to appreciate. And I think he definitely embodied that well, especially in the last 6, 9, 12 months that he had, knowing what he was going through, knowing what was coming. I think it really shows you a lot about a person, about how they approach that kind of situation, given what the news that they're given. Not that there's the other side of it too. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that you can't also be absolutely devastated and not want to go out, because that's fair too. Everyone's allowed to react to their situations the way that they feel is appropriate to them. But to be able to do this and be the person he was, I think it was a really great thing to see. So rest in peace to Sven Goran Eriksson, and thank you, Liverpool, for giving us the opportunity to see him manage the club at least once in his lifetime. So unfortunately, going from such a great man to having to talk about potentially Ten Hag for a bit, this week, Sunday, Man United, Old Trafford. Where are your nervous levels versus your excitement levels?
I think I would have been more nervous if Klopp was in charge.
Oh, really?
Only because when it comes to emotions, I think a lot of. I mean, definitely look at last season. I think that's where we lost the league, and I was, and that FA Cup loss was a kick between the legs for sure.
Yeah,
I think I think it's a good time to play them because people are still unsure about us, and we're still under the radar. So with Klopp, you knew what you got, so you knew how to prepare for the team. You knew ball was going to go to Salah. You knew how we were going to play. We're going to play. We're going to give up possession because we're just going to hit you on a counter attack. So if you had the players to counteract that, and Man United did, as it showed, it went against us. But with Slot, I think everyone's just unsure of how we're going to play, and they're not going to be used to us keeping the ball as much as we have done it, or we didn't do in the past. And I know you said, Brentford, we've only beaten Ipswich and Brentford. I think Brentford are a good team. I think they took 6 points against Man United last season, and I'm glad Tony wasn't playing, but Brentford are a good team, and we can only be what's in front of us. And
that's true.
I think 9 times out of 10 is always a good time to play Man United, but I think this is a good time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I don't think we shouldn't expect. I think the worst thing about that 5-0 drubbing was that every time we play them, we expect to just beat them 4-0 and then 7-0, and then so especially last year. That was the FA Cup specifically. That was quite a gut punch. Do you expect any changes to the starting 11, or do you think this is what we're going to see?
I think this is what we're going to see. Yeah. And going back to the Konate point, I think it's only been 1.5 games, but the fact that he's not having to cover Trent and do 2 people's roles, including his, I think that's where it's going to be a change for him, a positive change, obviously, if he can stay fit. But yeah, I don't see why he would need to change or need to tweak, because I don't think there was anything to tweak yesterday. I would just resting players and and obviously trying to score more goals. But no, I think he goes for the same team.
I agree wholeheartedly. So yeah, I'm excited to see where that goes. We will be back tonight with Gally and Bickler for our morning. It's always morning here for our Monday night show. I think Bickler and Gally will also be doing an EPL show that will be released either tomorrow or the day after. Obviously, Wednesday morning we'll be back. Thursday night we'll be back as well with our Thursday night gang, Friday morning, and then we will have our pre-match show on Sunday. So, Sir Z, Timothy usually ends the show asking me what my grooming plans are, but because he's not here, what are your typical Monday plans? What are you off to today?
Well, I have no hair to groom, so I'm good. I'm good. The wife's gone to school. She's doing a massage therapy course. She should be graduating soon. I'm going to go wake up my 13-year-old in about 10 minutes and hit the gym. Yeah, and then I'll be playing Uber for the rest of the day and picking kids up from school, dropping off, and then got Mai Tai later on tonight.
Nice. Okay, so a nice, a good filled day with things that you at least enjoy doing for the most part.
Except for
Hopefully,
Ubering. Yeah.
except for the Ubering, we're gonna just cross over that. I'm not gonna worry about that.
What about you?
Oh, the dog is getting groomed today, so that would have been my
Okay.
answer. Is that it's time for the dog. Other than that, it's my day off, so some groceries and stuff like that for the week, but nothing else that's too exciting. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. I'm glad you're able to hop on. And thank you to everyone who took their time out of their morning to watch us. We appreciate it very much. If you haven't yet, please go on over to the YouTube channel, give us a subscribe, give us a like, give us a follow, whatever the case might be. We appreciate it all. For all of us here at American Scouser, thank you so much, and we will see you guys later tonight.
Have a good week. Thank you.